In April 2010, love and marriage were the last things on 19-year-old Rachel Harner's mind.
I didn't actually plan on getting married, ever. I'd just come out of a relationship that didn't really end well. I just knew that it was going to take a little bit of time before I was willing to invest myself again.
But while Rachel was flighty in love, the Georgia girl was rock solid in her commitment to everything else, especially her duties as a reservist in the U.S. Marine Corps.
I loved it. At the time that I was waiting to be deployed, I was working as a waitress and a bartender. I was very, very busy.
And Rachel was also hunting for a third job to help ends meet.
I've always loved animals, and I wanted to work at a pet store. So I printed out an application, I filled it out, and I walked in.
Rachel couldn't help but feel like a smitten kitten when she first laid eyes on the manager conducting her interview, Michael Parson.
I noticed him right away. I thought he was very handsome. He had beautiful, smooth skin and a very intoxicating voice.
Tell me about yourself.
During the course of the interview, I told him that I was a Marine, and he pulled out his dog tags.
Yeah, I was in the Navy Corps.
I just kind of thought, ka-ching.
Michael told Rachel he'd been deployed to Iraq and received a Purple Heart after an IED exploded.
Michael said that he went to Iraq twice, and he had injured his lower back. I liked his military background.
3 days later, Michael offered Rachel the job, which she accepted with every intention of keeping her little crush in check.
Hey, Rachel, how are you?
But as the weeks passed, her feelings for Michael only grew.
Rachel would go on and on about Michael. It was a friendship that was definitely blossoming, and it was special to her.
After learning from coworkers that Michael was single, Rachel asked him out for lunch.
Michael was very surprised, but he said yes.
I'd love to, yeah.
As the two chatted over barbecue, Michael mentioned he was 28, nearly 10 years Rachel's senior.
So that doesn't bother you?
I was intimidated by the fact that he was older, smarter, and more mature. But I was attracted to him. When we left, he kissed me. At first, I kind of just wanted friendship, but I was interested in Michael in a more than friendly way. And so, inevitably, me and Michael became intimate.
By October of 2010, it became clear that Rachel and Michael were more than just friends with benefits.
When Rachel would start talking about Michael and her eyes would just kind of glaze over, you can tell there's no way she's letting him go.
For the first time, I could imagine growing old with somebody. And it hit me like a ton of bricks.
The couple did their best to see each other as often as their busy schedules would allow.
I was working 3 jobs. But for the most part, we spent a great deal of time with each other. And I would stay at his place, and he would stay at mine.
But when Rachel stayed at Michael's apartment, she couldn't help but notice something strange.
There was a lot of feminine products around. He had female shampoo and conditioner, brushes, and things that I wouldn't have expected. It didn't seem to fit because he was single.
This strange discovery was just the tip of the iceberg. And soon, Rachel would discover just how far and deep Michael's secrets actually went.
His whole life was a lie.
He's a monster. It's incomprehensible.
I was in shock. I refused to believe that Michael had done this. I did not know this man.
By October of 2010, Rachel Harner was head over heels for her new boyfriend, Michael Parson, but confused by the discovery of some feminine products in his home.
I wouldn't have expected a homegrown bachelor like him to have them. So I asked him, why do you have so much female stuff?
Any doubts Rachel might have had soon disappeared.
He informed me that his aunt, Adina, stayed with him while she was building a house in Atlanta.
This is her stuff.
And he showed me a photo, and I was like, wow, she is very beautiful. How old is she? And he said, late 40s. I understood. It's something that I would do for my family and vice versa.
But it wasn't always easy. Aunt Adina's visits forced Michael to sleep on the sofa.
He would complain the next day because his back would hurt from his injury. And I told him, just make her sleep on the futon. He's like, I'm not going to do that to my aunt.
But the pain in his back became so bad that Michael went for a scan of his spine and was given some horrible news.
Michael called me and he said he had spinal cancer. We were both shocked. I felt like I had found this beautiful, wonderful treasure, and all of it was about to get taken away from me.
Michael told Rachel he would have to go through chemo and radiation to stand a fighting chance.
She was very interested in finding more about it. She got really into natural remedies, things that would help the nausea. She wanted to make sure he was eating right, sleeping right.
But Michael's scheduled treatments always seemed to coincide with Rachel's mandatory military events. And in May, this Georgia girl received orders to complete training at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
I was very upset about it because I really wanted to be there for Michael. I always just assumed it was bad timing.
Soon, Michael was too frail to continue working at the pet store and had to take a job working at home for a phone company instead.
Michael lost a lot of weight, and he would throw up so frequently and so violently that sometimes there would be blood. We were very frightened because nothing seemed to be working.
So when Michael told Rachel that his only hope was laser radiation surgery and that the top facility for the procedure was in South Carolina, Rachel didn't think twice.
The surgeries were incredibly expensive. I left my car with him when I was stationed at Camp Lejeune for my training. And I told him that he should sell it, and whatever he could get from it, he should use it on his surgery.
Rachel just wanted to be there for Michael, do anything and everything she could, just to help him through it.
I was determined not to let this beat us.
In May of 2011, Michael told Rachel he underwent surgery and things couldn't have gone better.
He would have to do it a couple more times, but for the most part, it had worked. I was so relieved.
And when Rachel learned that she would deploy to Afghanistan in 4 months, she knew their love could endure the distance.
I had no doubts. I had absolute 100% confidence in Michael.
Rachel even made Michael the main beneficiary of all her military assets.
He would receive all of the money I had in my accounts. I put all of my belongings in storage.
Where'd you get this from?
My friend asked me to hold on to his pistol. I had a lot of equipment, and I packed every worldly possession I owned, and Michael had the key.
But as July 4th approached, Michael wanted one more thing from Rachel.
Me, Michael, and my family were just hanging out. And Michael just pulled out a ring and said, Rachel, you're the most beautiful woman in the world.
Will you marry me?
I was like, of course. It was exactly what I wanted. I was ecstatic.
I could tell she was surprised. I really still felt that she was too young, but she was definitely happy.
Only one major hurdle stood between Rachel, Michael, and wedded bliss: deployment.
I was deploying to Afghanistan. I was very scared, but I believed in Michael, and I had faith in him.
Who could have known what a tragic mistake that would be? Especially when long-distance love turned into unimaginable lies.
He had this whole different life, and Rachel didn't have a clue.
Michael was able to manipulate people his entire life.
I had been betrayed and tricked. I felt all the blood drain from my face.
In the fall of 2011, After accepting her boyfriend Michael Parsons' wedding proposal, Rachel Harner was stationed in Afghanistan for 7 months.
The number one thing that made it easier to endure was Michael, and in the scariest moments of my time in Afghanistan, Michael was the one I was thinking of.
Even though Michael's cancer was officially in remission, Rachel still wished she could be there for him.
Rachel and Michael communicated in every way you could think of long distance, even though she was so far away.
I only had one opportunity to video chat Michael during my deployment. It's the first time I'd seen his face in 5 or 6 months, and I was very excited about it.
But Rachel's excitement quickly turned to shock.
As I was talking to him, a woman walked into his office. And she walked right up to him and just leaned forward and kissed him on the lips. I lost my mind. I said, "Who's this woman?" He said, "That's my aunt."
So you need someplace to stay.
And I was like, "She kissed you on the lips. That's not something your aunt does."
Michael tried to calm his fiancée down.
He was like, "That's just the way our family is."
We're just an affectionate family.
And after a little bit of arguing, I accepted his explanation. He told me all about her, and so I ended up apologizing to Michael.
It's all right.
And I said, I have insecurities because we've been away from each other for the past 5 months.
A few weeks later, Rachel received some exciting news. She would be returning to the States.
And I was ecstatic. And I felt like there was nothing that was going to stand in our way.
In April 2012, the couple finally reunited at Camp Lejeune.
Rachel and I got back from Afghanistan, and I just see Rachel run into Michael's arms. And there's just the look on her face of just pure joy.
The happy couple went to a nearby hotel room and spent 3 days catching up. After a few more days on the base, Rachel finally returned to Atlanta, and the two lovebirds went to dinner with her parents.
At the dinner table, they were just holding hands. He was feeding her bites of his food from his plate, just talking about how happy they were that she's home.
That night, the couple settled into another hotel, since Aunt Adina was in town once again. 4 days later, they parted ways.
I had to go back to Augusta because I was still on active duty. So I kissed him, and I told him I loved him, and I was going to see him that weekend.
But around 10 o'clock that evening, Rachel was startled by a knock on her door.
I opened up the hotel room door, and it was the police. And they were like, "Rachel Harner?" I was like, "Yes, sir, that's me." He's like, "Do you know Michael Parson?" I was like, "Yes, sir. What's going on?"
I need you to come with us.
And what they said next was just the beginning of a nightmare that would consume Rachel's life for years to come.
All the lies that Michael had told her began to unravel.
What Michael did was sickening.
I did not believe what I was hearing. I just kept saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God."
If you have a story for Who the Bleep and would like to appear on the series, go to investigation.discovery.com. In April 2012, Rachel Harner was stunned to find police at her hotel room, asking about her fiancé, Michael Parson.
And they drove me to the police department, and they took me to an interrogation room. I was like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I'm really freaked out right now.
Rachel could hardly believe her ears when investigators began questioning her about Michael's wife.
I was like, Michael can't be married. He's not. We're engaged. I was like, we're getting married in October. There's no way that he can be married.
And that's when police said the words that would change her life forever.
Michael Parson's wife was Adina Parson.
I was in shock. They showed me a picture of her, and I said, "That's his aunt." And he said, "No, that's his wife." They'd been married for a few years.
And And that was just the beginning of the lies.
We informed Rachel that Michael was 42, not 30 years old. He was married before Adina, and that he had a child living in South Carolina.
I felt all the blood drain from my face because I realized his cancer treatments were in South Carolina.
That's when police dropped yet another bombshell.
The hospital records showed that Michael had never received any type of treatment for any type of cancer whatsoever.
I refused to believe it, and I argued with him. I looked them right in the eye, and I said, he threw up in front of me, he was ill, he lost weight. I do not know how Michael lost all that weight or why he was sick.
But the harder Rachel tried to defend Michael's character, the more holes police poked in his stories.
Michael was in the military but never served overseas or in any type of combat situation. His injuries were from falling off of a roof.
I was confused and upset, and I was in complete and utter denial.
Police clearly had Rachel's attention, and next they delivered the most shocking blow of all.
On April 20th, Michael made a phone call to Adina to lure her out of their apartment complex. When Adina came out, he was there waiting for her to come outside. She was shot 2 to 3 times in the head, and then was shot 5 to 6 times across her body. We believe Michael planned this attack.
Police revealed Adina had survived, but was in critical condition.
Michael had shot his wife, and less than 24 hours later, he was in my arms after he had done such a horrible, horrible thing. I did not believe what I was hearing. I just kept saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then Detective McGinnis described the make model of the gun. And it happened to be the exact same gun that was in my storage unit, and Michael had the key. It finally hit me that Michael had committed this crime. I couldn't deny it anymore.
On May 5th, 2012, Michael Parson was found hiding out in Texas. He was arrested and extradited to Georgia. Michael was charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault and battery, and making false statements to the police.
Michael never admitted his guilt, but we believe Michael's motive in this shooting was so that he could go ahead and marry and spend the rest of his life with Rachel Hunter.
I don't believe necessarily that Michael did this as an act of love so much as an act of cold, calculating indifference.
He's a monster. I was full of rage. It's incomprehensible, and it disgusted us.
She had no idea that everything about him was a lie. What Michael did to her was sickening. It was just gruesome.
Today, Rachel is still bothered by the clues she overlooked.
The single most thing that I regret is not saying, you know what, I'd like to meet Adina. It could have changed the entire outcome.
And she still has no idea how Michael was able to fake cancer so convincingly.
I don't know if he took weight pills or got his hands on actual chemo pills. I don't know what Michael did to make himself sick.
While Rachel didn't suffer like Adina, she is also a victim of Michael Parsons' betrayal.
I think Rachel will never be able to trust the way she used to trust, but everything she does now shows me that she has hope.
The man I love doesn't exist. It's like being in love with a character in a book. He was never real.
Columbus, Ohio resident Jamie Hart had done his fair share of dating, but had never found the one connection that clicked.
I was just kind of looking for someone to go on a few dates with and see if there was any chemistry.
The 27-year-old collections agent always tried to keep a positive attitude. So in the early summer of 2008, while waiting for coffee at his local cafe, Jamie exchanged smiles with an attractive girl in line.
The line was extremely long. I made the comment, "Man, we're going to be here for a while." And she kind of chuckled and said,
"Yeah, it looks like we are."
And we just kind of started talking back and forth.
The young woman introduced herself as Melissa Stredney. And when their coffee came, Jamie decided to keep the ball rolling.
So we just sat down and had a conversation for about an hour or so. I found her quite attractive. She seemed kind of quirky, kind of funny. She seemed to be free spirit, but well-adjusted.
And Jamie was impressed by the 27-year-old's drive and ambition.
She had her bachelor's degree already. She was a graduate teaching assistant for the chemistry department in a local university here. She had a lot of things going for her.
After exchanging phone numbers, Jamie was pleased when Melissa texted him almost immediately about seeing a movie together. The date went so well, soon the two were inseparable.
As the relationship progressed, there was more and more chemistry. I found myself falling in love with her.
Before Jamie knew it, he and Melissa were in a hot and heavy committed relationship just a few months into dating.
He was excited at that time, but me and my wife, we were kind of taken back as to how sudden things were developing in the relationship. But Jamie sounded extremely happy.
Still, Jamie was hesitant when, after 6 months together, Melissa asked him to move in with her.
It kind of seemed like the natural progression of how the relationship was going. But Melissa was moving a little bit more quickly than I was ready to do.
For the first time, Jamie gently put on the brakes. After all, they hadn't been through any of life's trials and tribulations yet. That is, until February that year.
Melissa told me that she was going to resign her position from the university. She didn't really go into detail why, just say there was a misunderstanding with her and some of the students. When I kind of probed about what the misunderstanding was, Melissa was upset, angry, so I didn't really question it.
Jamie wasn't sure what to think, but as the weeks passed, Melissa couldn't seem to stop crying.
She told me that she had depression and some anxiety issues that she was battling with for a few years. She went into a local hospital for depression. So I'm like, this must be a pretty bad spout. But there's a lot of people in the world that do battle depression. So it wasn't anything to stop me from continuing to see her.
Jamie was relieved when Melissa was discharged a week later.
She was taking medication and seeing a therapist once or twice every few weeks. That zeal and passion for life returned. She seemed to be back to her normal self.
Then Melissa told Jamie she had a big surprise for him.
She was at my apartment. She presented me with a card. And it said, "Congratulations, you're going to be a father." And I'm like, wow. All right, that's exciting.
Jamie was even more stunned when Melissa said she wasn't just pregnant, she was expecting triplets.
My reaction to that was shock. I wasn't out of the realm of possibilities in my mind because twins run in my family. Even though I was worried, like, how are we gonna do this? Being a father was one of my dreams.
But before long, his excitement would turn into heartache, and then horror.
Everywhere he went, she would show up.
She knew exactly what she was doing.
This was not the person I fell in love with. This was the ultimate betrayal.
In April of 2010, Jamie Hart and his girlfriend, Melissa Stredney, were expecting triplets.
There was that initial shock. There was that sense of excitement and happiness that comes with that.
He was ecstatic, nervous, freaked out, every emotion that you could feel. And he really took that responsibility seriously.
And since Melissa seemed to be doing so well with her antidepressants, Jamie felt it was time to take the next step in their relationship. Jamie moved in with Melissa, and the couple set a wedding date for October of that year.
I thought things were just moving too fast, and we even mentioned it to him. Are you sure this is something you want to do this early? And he said, yeah, this is what I want.
And as Jamie focused on his future with Melissa, he became even more excited about being a father.
I wanted to be an active member. These were my children that she was carrying, so I wanted to be there for every milestone.
But when Melissa started scheduling prenatal visits without him, Jamie couldn't help but feel slighted.
They always seemed to be when I was working or when I had other obligations. I would say, if you're having an appointment, let me know. I can get those days off. And she said she didn't want to burden me with that because we were in a little bit of financial difficulty, so missing work wasn't really an option.
But when Melissa shut Jamie out of a major pregnancy milestone, he grew flat out angry.
Sometime in the late stages of the first trimester, Melissa told me that she got an ultrasound. And I went, oh, awesome, can I see it? She said, well, my dad wanted to see it and I already mailed it to him. Why would you send it to your father but not let the father of the children see it? And I was quite upset that she did that. I wanted to be there for every appointment, and I made it very clear that that was very important to me.
Sadly, he wouldn't get the chance.
About a few days later, I came home and Melissa was distraught, and she told me that she went to the hospital that day and that she actually miscarried. You know, I did my best to comfort her. I was in a state of shock. Both of us shed a lot of tears that night.
Jamie barely had time to feel his own grief before Melissa plunged back into a dark depression. Jamie even found himself questioning his desire to get married now that they were no longer expecting.
I had serious thoughts about ending the engagement, but I kind of thought to end a relationship, especially someone you loved, after they had a miscarriage would be unforgivable.
He had already asked her to marry him, and he wanted to do the right thing as far as not abandoning her.
Then, almost overnight, Jamie saw an entirely different side to Melissa.
She would call me like worthless, just anything that she could think of. I would just kind of zone her out and not really hear what she was saying.
Until one night, when Melissa took her abuse to the next level.
It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and she was over top of me, just swinging away, physically assaulting me. She was telling me to get out of the house.
But when Jamie tried to leave, Melissa suddenly apologized.
She kind of made it into like, if I would have left, I would be abandoning her.
Jamie decided to let the incident slide, but despite his best efforts at keeping Melissa calm, there was no peace on the horizon. And before long, Jamie would realize his unhappy fiancée wasn't just miserable, she was monstrous.
She was very angry. Who knew what she was capable of?
It was crazy. He never believed that she would do that.
She knew where I would be. It was becoming more and more scary. I was thinking, how much longer can she do this?
In September of 2010, Jamie Hart's fiancée, Melissa Stredney, was becoming volatile after a miscarriage.
She was verbally abusing me and she was physically assaulting me. Even though she was suffering from depression, I was turning more and more into the victim.
She would threaten to commit suicide if he left. I think he had a sense of responsibility to her. He really was deep into that caregiver role.
Then one night, Jamie woke up to a frightening sight.
Melissa was awake, and I was like, what are you doing up? And she's like,
I can't sleep.
And then I see that she has in her hands a kitchen knife. I'm kind of dazed and confused. I'm like, why do you have a knife? And her only response was,
I can't sleep.
Jamie stayed calm and gently took the knife from Melissa's hand.
I was more concerned she was going to hurt herself than myself. I ended up staying up with her the rest of the night. She eventually kind of dozed off.
The following morning, Jamie reached out to Melissa's therapist. And soon Melissa was on some new medication. But Jamie was torn.
I was very upset. This woman was completely different than the woman that I met initially. But I can't abandon her. I was concerned about how she was going to get by if I would have left.
But just a few days later, Jamie finally reached his breaking point.
One evening I came home from going out with a friend. I noticed that Melissa was gone, which was kind of strange. But I also noticed some of my personal belongings were gone. There were mementos, photos, miscellaneous records, totally missing. I immediately called her and asked her where my belongings were. She just laughed and hung up on me. It was at that moment that I made the decision that I had enough. These were things that I would never be able to replace. She was stealing my memories. I called my father up and we packed up as much stuff as I could in my car and his car and left.
It was a separation of not only ending the relationship, but ending him knowing Melissa altogether.
But Melissa wasn't going to let Jamie go without a fight.
She was starting to send me threatening messages, saying that she would find me and stab me. They were always of physical harm. She knew where I would be at certain times of the day. It was becoming more and more scary. She would show up 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a week and try to confront me. I started trying to alter my patterns or places where I would be.
But Melissa would not be ignored. On December 14th, 2010, Jamie bundled up and drove into work. As he exited his car, braced against the freezing wind, he found himself facing something much colder.
I only made it about 10 feet from my car where I was immediately stopped by Melissa. I asked her what she was doing here. Melissa turned to me and said, "Get in my car or else." And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Knowing instinctively not to get in, Jamie attempted to reason with Melissa.
And she pulled out a silver and black handgun. I was shocked, scared. I said, "What are you doing? You don't want to do this. Please put the gun away." At that moment, time kind of stopped for me. When it was clear to her that I was not going to get into her car, she shot me. I remember my vision going out black.
Pierced by the bullet in his left eye, Jamie's light dimmed and his sight vanished as Melissa fled the scene.
Melissa immediately pulled out of the parking lot. 8 separate people saw this incident and were already on the phone with the police.
Emergency vehicles were dispatched as authorities hurtled down Ohio highways to find and stop an armed madwoman.
It was like pulling a pin on a grenade.
Police were converging on the area. They didn't know what she might do next.
If you have a story for Who the Bleep and would like to appear on the series, go to investigation.discovery.com. On December 14th, 2010, police were hunting Jamie Hart's ex-fiancée, Melissa Stredney, after she fired a bullet into his face and fled. Within minutes, an officer locked onto Melissa's car.
Police officer pulled out behind her, lights and sirens signaling her to pull over. She would not stop.
As Melissa accelerated toward a busy intersection, the quick-thinking policeman made a tough decision.
He executed a maneuver in which he rammed the back of her car. with guns drawn, other officers converged. They didn't know if she still had that gun in the car or not. They didn't know what she might do next. They were able to pull her out of the car at gunpoint and take her into custody at that point.
Melissa slowly surrendered, but the gun was missing.
Melissa told the police that as she pulled out of the parking lot and onto the main road, she had pitched a gun out the window. They started walking from the point of where she left the business to the point of where she was arrested, and they were able to find the gun.
Melissa was charged with 5 felonies, including attempted murder and kidnapping. Meanwhile, Jamie was rushed to the nearest hospital.
I was instantly in shock. That was kind of a sleepless night for us. We were numb. Jamie, he was just in our prayers.
Miraculously, Jamie survived, but the bullet had completely destroyed his left eye, shattering his skull and entering the base of his tongue. Luckily, the bullet never pierced his brain.
They had to surgically remove the eye. It was shocking to see him laying there. It was very emotional.
Jamie's sight returned in his right eye, and as he healed, he began to see the full extent of Melissa's deceptive nature, starting with the misunderstanding with her job at the university.
Melissa told me that she resigned her position. What I later came to find out, she was fired from the university.
Apparently, Melissa had encouraged her lab class to cheat and to leave early. When some of the students reported her, she went on the offensive.
She followed up with making threatening emails to the students to the point where the police became involved. No formal charges were filed, but she was dismissed from her position.
And Jamie couldn't help but wonder if Melissa had lied about other things, too.
I ended up having doubts about whether the whole pregnancy was made up. I wasn't able to go to any of the doctor appointments, never saw the ultrasound. I only had her word that she miscarried.
As Jamie tried to come to grips with all that had happened, Melissa claimed the shooting was an accident.
How did the gun fall?
I don't know. I wasn't even holding the trigger at first. I'm not really a murdering person.
But when witnesses reported to police that Melissa aimed to kill, her defense shifted to an insanity plea. She described a lifelong battle with mental illness.
I was diagnosed with major depression when I was 12 and I was in a mental institution for 6 weeks. I went to the hospital in November because I'm bipolar and I went manic.
But Melissa's actions after she shot Jamie left her defense full of holes.
She fled the scene. She got rid of evidence. She was rational. She was goal-directed. There's lots of bipolar people out there that don't commit violent crimes of this nature. She knew what she did was wrong.
On June 21st, 2011, just 6 months after her vicious attack, Melissa finally accepted a plea deal to the lesser charges of felonious assault and tampering with evidence. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison.
I really wasn't happy with the 15 years. I think she uses her mental illness as an excuse for a lot of her actions. She knew exactly what she was doing that day. Her goal that day was to end my life.
Today, after 8 surgeries, Jamie's left eye socket and cheekbone have been successfully reconstructed.
They actually split his skull to go in and try to build up the cheekbones. That's pretty major surgery. He really hung in there. He's very brave.
But the emotional damage has been far worse.
I'm very guarded. I now have anxiety, post-traumatic stress, the nightmares that I suffer.
Though he'll never again see with his left eye, Jamie's vision of his future is clear.
This whole experience, it's made me more humble in the grand scheme of things. Every one of us want to be happy, and that's kind of what I'm seeking now, is just happiness.
The vastness of the Pacific Ocean carries a dual, deeply contradictory nature that has fascinated and terrified humanity for centuries. On the surface, it is a boundless expanse of mesmerizing tranquility, a shimmering mirror reflecting the intense tropical sun. bordered by pristine coral reefs and whispering palm trees that sway in the gentle trade winds. It represents the quintessential image of a pristine paradise, a geographic isolation that seemingly promises a serene escape from the chaotic machinations, the noise, and the inherent violence of the modern, industrialized world. Millions of people dream of such shores, viewing them as a sanctuary where the complexities of life can simply be washed away by the rhythmic tide. However, beneath those undulating waves and the postcard-perfect shorelines lies an abyssal, impenetrable darkness, a profound silence capable of swallowing the most terrifying secrets known to humanity without leaving a single ripple on the surface. Nature, in all its breathtaking, awe-inspiring beauty, is fundamentally and inherently indifferent to the moral failings of the human beings who inhabit it. This stark, disturbing contrast between the serene, almost utopian environment and the terrifying capacity for extreme human malice forms the very foundation and the dark core of our narrative today. We are journeying far from the familiar continental landscapes to the heart of the South Pacific, specifically landing our focus on the island of Tutuila, the largest, most vibrant, and most populous island in the unincorporated territory of American Samoa. Tutuila is a geographical marvel, a place defined by its dramatic, towering volcanic landscapes, its incredibly dense, lush rainforests that seem to breathe with life, and a deep, enduring cultural heritage that dictates the rhythm of everyday existence. The air here is perpetually heavy with a combined scent of salt from the surrounding ocean and the rich, damp earth of the tropical canopy. The pace of life on this island is historically and culturally dictated not by the rigid ticking of a clock, but by the natural elements, the shifting tides, and the slow descent of the setting sun. In a community that is geographically severed from the vast, sprawling continents by thousands of miles of open water, there exists an intrinsic, almost mandatory reliance on social cohesion and mutual support. Isolation naturally breeds a deep familiarity among the inhabitants. On an island where the physical borders are firmly defined by an endless, inescapable horizon of blue water, the concept of a true stranger is almost entirely foreign to the local psyche. Everyone is connected, whether directly through bloodlines or indirectly through the tight-knit fabric of the local village population. It is a place where doors are traditionally and trusting left unlocked, where the communal spirit acts as a vital, protective shield against the unpredictable, often destructive forces of tropical nature. Yet, it is precisely this deeply ingrained illusion of absolute safety, this foundational, society-wide trust, that makes the sudden infiltration of pure, unadulterated evil so profoundly devastating to the collective consciousness. When the rapid tropical darkness falls over the dense canopy of Tutuila, it does not merely obscure the beautiful landscape from view. Occasionally, it provides the absolute perfect, impenetrable camouflage for predators operating not out in the wild jungles, but right within the established boundaries of human society. The year is 2002. The dawn of a new millennium has brought rapid technological shifts and changing global paradigms to much of the outside world, yet the island of Tutuila remains largely tethered to its timeless, steady cadence. The crashing waves against the black volcanic rocks maintain their eternal, rhythmic assault. It is within this specific temporal and spatial intersection, amidst this blend of old traditions and subtle modern influences, that we encounter a young man whose name would tragically and permanently become synonymous with one of the most harrowing, brutal chapters in the island's entire criminal history. His name is Wyatt Bowles Jr. At exactly 23 years of age, Wyatt perfectly embodies the very essence and the fleeting beauty of youth. To be 23 years old is to stand at a highly unique, transitional crossroads in the human experience. It is a definitive period characterized by an intoxicating blend of physical vitality, eager anticipation for the future, and an inherent, often unchallenged belief in the fundamental goodness of a surrounding world. The eyes of a typical 23-year-old are almost always fixed firmly on the horizon of the future, looking outward toward a life filled with limitless potential, unfulfilled aspirations, and the simple, universal pursuit of personal happiness and belonging. Wyatt Bowles Jr. was certainly no exception to this universal, unspoken rule of youth. He carried with him the vibrant, infectious energy of someone who firmly believed he had his entire life stretched out comfortably before him. In the relatively small, deeply interconnected world of American Samoa, a young man like Wyatt is a familiar, comforting presence, a single vibrant thread woven seamlessly into the complex daily tapestry of island life. There is a specific kind of innocence that naturally accompanies growing up and living in such a sheltered, community-focused environment, an unwritten but deeply understood social contract that dictates a certain baseline level of mutual respect, physical safety, and looking out for one another among the island's inhabitants. Wyatt, much like many young people successfully navigating the complex transition from adolescence into full adulthood, operated under the foundational assumption that the world around him, and particularly his specific world on the island of Tutuila, was a fundamentally rational, predictable, and safe space. He possessed the natural, understandable naivety of someone who had not yet been thoroughly exposed to the darkest, most unfathomable, and thoroughly depraved recesses of human cruelty. He could not have possibly anticipated, even in his darkest nightmares, that the familiar, well-trodden pathways of his beloved island home would soon morph into a terrifying, inescapable landscape of unimaginable terror. The deeply tragic reality of human social interaction is that the boundaries separating a benign, everyday social encounter from a fatal, meticulously orchestrated snare is often terrifyingly thin and entirely invisible to the naked eye. It is almost never marked by overt signs of danger, threatening postures, or blaring internal alarms. Instead, this invisible, deadly line is frequently and easily crossed through the most ordinary, mundane of gestures: a casual conversation on a street corner, a shared acquaintance offering a smile, a seemingly harmless invitation extended under the false, comforting guise of camaraderie and friendship. For a young, socially active man like Wyatt Bowles Jr., who was simply navigating the standard social dynamics of his peer group on the island, there was absolutely no logical reason to harbor deep-seated paranoia or constant suspicion. The predators who meticulously orchestrate such fatal traps rarely present themselves as obvious monsters lurking in the shadows. Instead, they successfully wear the disarming masks of familiarity and casual acquaintance. They ruthlessly exploit the very foundational trust that is so crucial to the island's culture. They deeply understand that a victim is actually most vulnerable not when they are isolated in a completely dark, unknown alleyway, but precisely when they believe they are perfectly safe in the company of individuals they recognize, individuals who share their immediate community, their cultural background, and their daily environment. This calculated exploitation of familiarity is perhaps the most chilling, psychologically disturbing aspect of this entire narrative. It forces a complete, uncomfortable reevaluation of what it actually means to be safe in one's own home environment. When the source of mortal danger originates directly from within the established social circle, the fundamental psychological structures of trust are completely and violently dismantled. Wyatt Bowles Jr. was targeted, not by random, violent strangers passing through the island on a temporary basis, but by individuals who understood exactly how to manipulate his inherent sense of security and community belonging. The trap that was set for him was laid not with mechanical components or obvious physical restraints, but with lethal psychological precision. It relied entirely on the victim's natural, human inclination to politely accept a friendly overture, his willingness to step slightly outside his immediate comfort zone based solely on the false reassurance of a recognized face and a shared history. In the dimming, atmospheric light of a tropical evening on Tutuila, a simple nod of agreement, a casual, split-second decision to accompany someone to a slightly different location, became the fatal, irreversible catalyst that permanently sealed his doom. He walked into the encroaching darkness completely willingly, entirely unaware that the metaphorical path behind him was already being systematically erased by those he trusted. Then, the narrative shifts abruptly and violently from the comforting, routine flow of daily island life into an agonizing, silent void. Wyatt Bowles Jr. vanished. The sudden transition from physical presence to complete, unexplained absence was absolute, shocking, and immediate. There were absolutely no warning signs left behind to decode, no cryptic messages hastily scribbled on a notepad, no final, desperate phone calls indicating acute distress or a sudden, unexpected change of personal plans. He simply and inexplicably ceased to interact with the physical world around him. In a sprawling, densely populated modern metropolis, a person might easily slip away unnoticed, completely swallowed by the sheer, overwhelming volume of humanity and concrete. But on the relatively small, geographically contained island of Tutuila, an unexpected, total disappearance is a glaring, impossible anomaly. The strict geographic constraints of the island naturally dictate that a person cannot simply wander off without being seen by someone, somewhere along the way. When a young man who is deeply embedded in his local community suddenly drops out of existence without a single trace, the resulting silence is not merely an absence of ambient noise. It transforms into a heavy, suffocating, almost physical entity that instantly descends upon his family and loved ones. For the immediate family of Wyatt Bowles Jr., this sudden, inexplicable silence rapidly became their new, torturous daily reality. The initial hours of his unexplained absence were likely filled with the mundane, desperate rationalizations that families universally employ to stave off the rising tide of absolute panic. They likely told themselves that perhaps he had simply lost track of time while socializing, perhaps he was temporarily stranded with a broken-down vehicle on a remote, quiet stretch of the island road, or perhaps he was simply staying overnight with close friends and had carelessly forgotten to communicate his whereabouts to his parents. These are the standard, comforting narratives that the human brain constructs as a defense mechanism to protect the fragile mind from contemplating the truly unthinkable. But as the agonizing hours slowly stretched into a full, agonizing day, and then relentlessly into multiple, silent days, these fragile rationalizations systematically collapsed under the crushing, undeniable weight of a dark reality. The silence in their home grew deafeningly loud. Every sudden ring of the telephone brought a massive, adrenaline-fueled surge of desperate hope, immediately followed by the devastating, soul-crushing crash of disappointment when the voice on the other end was not his. Every random footstep approaching the front door felt like a potential, miraculous revelation, only to gradually fade away into the mocking nothingness of the tropical breeze. The intense psychological torment of not knowing, of existing indefinitely in a cruel, liminal space trapped halfway between desperate hope and profound grief, is an exquisite, unparalleled form of mental agony. The family was suddenly forced to navigate this endless waking nightmare, completely and entirely blind to the horrific, bloody truth of what had actually transpired in the darkness. As the days bled mercilessly into one another without a single breakthrough, the general atmosphere on the island of Tutuila grew increasingly tense and profoundly uneasy. The vast communal network, usually a reliable source of immense comfort and rapid information sharing, quickly transformed into an uncontrollable engine of dark rumor and highly anxious speculation. The pristine, white sand beaches and the majestic, verdant mountains of Tutuila stood in silent, unblinking witness to the rapidly escalating dread that was gripping the local population. The frantic, coordinated searches conducted by authorities and volunteers, the widespread distribution of missing person information, the desperate, tearful public pleas for any minor fragment of knowledge regarding Wyatt's last known whereabouts yielded absolutely nothing of value. It was as if the young man had been entirely and deliberately erased from the physical realm by an unseen, malevolent force. The stark, jarring juxtaposition between the breathtaking, sun-drenched, vibrant environment of American Samoa and the dark, terrifying, cold mystery unfolding right within its borders became impossibly stark and difficult to mentally reconcile. The breathtaking nature of the Pacific continued its majestic, daily display, utterly and chillingly indifferent to the profound human tragedy that was actively playing out right beneath its ancient canopy. However, the physical Earth rarely manages to keep its most violent, bloody secrets hidden forever, regardless of how deep they are buried. The agonizing, prolonged period of uncertainty, characterized by a desperate, exhausting, and clinging hope from the family, was inevitably and rapidly hurtling toward a devastating, permanent conclusion. The heavy, suffocating silence that had completely enveloped the grieving family and the anxious community was destined to be violently shattered, not by the joyful, highly anticipated return of the missing 23-year-old, but by a physical revelation so incredibly grim and disturbing that it would permanently alter the entire island's perception of its own safety. The absolute truth was silently waiting to be discovered, hidden carefully away in a desolate, unforgiving, heavily overgrown corner of the island where the warm light of the tropical day actively struggled to penetrate the dense foliage. When the final resolution to the agonizing, multi-day mystery finally arrived, it did not bring the gentle comfort of closure. Instead, it brought a visceral, overwhelming, and unforgettable horror. The stark reality of Wyatt Bowles Jr.'s ultimate fate was about to manifest in the physical shape of a tragedy so profound and a calculated brutality so extreme that it would leave the most hardened, seasoned investigators in a state of absolute, sickening disbelief, proving definitively that the most terrifying, ruthless monsters do not lurk safely hidden in the crushing depths of the Pacific Ocean, but rather, they walk openly and freely on the land, disguised perfectly as ordinary men. The agonizing, suffocating silence that had tightly gripped the island of Tutuila and the desperate family of Wyatt Bowles Jr. was not destined to simply fade away into a quiet, unresolved resignation. Instead, it was shattered with the blunt, devastating force of a physical blow. The transition from a desperate missing persons search to a grim recovery operation is a highly specific, chilling shift in momentum that every seasoned law enforcement officer recognizes with a heavy heart. The frantic energy of hope is instantly replaced by a solemn, deeply methodical dread. When the local authorities finally received the crucial information that directed them toward a highly isolated, deeply overgrown, and largely forsaken section of the island's interior, the collective atmospheric pressure among the search teams fundamentally changed. This was no longer a rescue mission. The geographic location itself, situated far away from the bustling coastal villages and the comforting glow of residential streetlights, immediately suggested a deeply sinister conclusion. As the convoy of police vehicles slowly navigated the treacherous, uneven terrain, pushing deeper into the dense, suffocating embrace of the tropical rainforest, the natural darkness of the Samoan night seemed to press against the windows with an incredible, almost physical weight. The physical journey into this remote sector of the island mirrored a psychological descent into the very darkest, most depraved corners of the human psyche. The vibrant, lush greenery that defines the island's celebrated beauty during the daylight hours now transformed into a series of menacing, impenetrable shadows, forming a natural, silent fortress that was completely indifferent to the horrifying secret it had been forced to conceal over the past several days. Upon finally reaching the designated coordinates deep within the suffocating brush, the immediate physical reality of the situation rapidly began to crystallize under the harsh, unforgiving glare of artificial illumination. The rhythmic, stroboscopic flashing of red and blue police lights violently sliced through the oppressive tropical darkness, casting long, erratic, and deeply unsettling shadows across the surrounding foliage. It was a profoundly unnatural intrusion of modern, institutional urgency into an ancient, silent ecosystem. The crickets and nocturnal creatures of the jungle, usually a defining feature of the island's ambient soundtrack, seemed to be entirely silenced by the sudden, overwhelming presence of law enforcement personnel. Slowly and meticulously, the officers began the grim process of establishing a secure perimeter, unrolling bright yellow crime scene tape that fluttered weakly in the damp, stagnant night air. This fragile, plastic barrier served as a stark, horrifying demarcation line, officially separating the realm of the living, rational world from a localized epicenter of unimaginable terror and absolute brutality. Every single footstep taken by the responding officers, crushing the dry tropical leaves and snapping fallen branches beneath their heavy boots, felt excessively loud in the heavy, expectant atmosphere. They were stepping onto desecrated ground, fully aware that whatever lay hidden within the center of that yellow perimeter would forever alter their professional lives and permanently stain the historical memory of their island home. The air was thick, not just with the characteristic, oppressive humidity of the South Pacific, but with the undeniable, metallic, and deeply instinctual scent of a profound human tragedy that had already reached its catastrophic, bloody conclusion. As the lead investigators and seasoned forensic technicians finally breached the inner perimeter and cautiously approached the specific location of the remains, a profound, chilling silence instantly cascaded over the entire crew. In the highly specialized, often emotionally detached profession of homicide investigation, officers are systematically trained to compartmentalize trauma, to view a crime scene merely as a complex, three-dimensional puzzle demanding a logical, scientific solution rather than a purely emotional reaction. They have witnessed the tragic aftermath of domestic disputes, the fatal consequences of sudden, heated altercations, and the grim reality of standard criminal violence resulting from theft or passion. However, the scene that physically materialized before their eyes in that isolated jungle clearing completely shattered decades of professional psychological conditioning. The most hardened, veteran law enforcement officials, individuals who had dedicated their entire careers to navigating the darkest underbelly of society, found themselves momentarily paralyzed by a profound, sickening sense of disbelief. They stood completely motionless in the oppressive heat, their flashlights trained steadily on a reality that fundamentally defied standard criminal categorization. This was not the chaotic, messy aftermath of a robbery gone wrong, nor was it the tragic result of a sudden, impulsive act of lethal anger. What they were staring at was the chilling, undeniable culmination of a deliberate, sustained, and highly organized campaign of absolute physical destruction. It became immediately, horrifically apparent to every single person standing within that yellow tape that this was not merely a murder, it was a highly ritualistic, exceptionally savage execution designed to inflict maximum terror. The physical remains of Wyatt Bowles Jr., the vibrant 23-year-old who had vanished from his normal life just days prior, were discovered in a condition that spoke volumes about the sheer magnitude of the hatred directed toward him. While the fundamental principles of respectful true crime storytelling demand a certain level of restraint regarding the most gratuitously graphic anatomical details, it is absolutely essential to accurately convey the extreme, exceptional severity of the violence inflicted upon this young man to truly understand the monstrous nature of the perpetrators. The body had been subjected to a level of sustained, extreme physical trauma that goes far beyond the simple, immediate objective of ending a human life. The countless, overlapping injuries deeply etched into his physical form served as a horrifying, silent testimony to a prolonged period of unimaginable agony. The forensic evidence scattered across the immediate scene and written directly onto the victim's flesh indicated a terrifying narrative that the investigators had to slowly piece together. Prior to finally drawing his last breath in that dark clearing, Wyatt had been systematically subjected to hours of unrelenting, merciless torture. Every single mark, every severe contusion, and every catastrophic physical violation represented a distinct, separate moment in time where multiple individuals made the active, conscious decision to continue inflicting maximum pain upon a defenseless, terrified human being. This was not a quick, merciful death delivered in a moment of panic or haste. It was a slow, agonizing process of systematic physical and psychological annihilation, completely devoid of even the slightest fraction of human empathy or basic moral restraint. The sheer scale of the brutality suggested a disturbing, mob-like mentality, a collective, frenzied descent into pure, unadulterated sadism that fundamentally betrayed the inherent goodness typically associated with the island's culture. One can only imagine the sheer psychological terror that Wyatt must have experienced during those endless hours. He was a young man entirely stripped of his agency, surrounded by the impenetrable darkness of the jungle, completely isolated from any hope of rescue, and subjected to the darkest impulses of individuals he likely recognized. The extreme violence documented at the scene was not random, it was intensely personal, a deliberate performance of power and cruelty designed to completely break the victim's spirit long before his body finally succumbed to the massive, sustained trauma. The investigators, illuminating the grim details with their flashlights, were forced to confront the deeply uncomfortable reality that human beings are fully capable of treating one another with a level of savagery that easily surpasses the behavior of the most vicious wild animals. In the grim, highly clinical aftermath of the initial discovery, as the physical body was carefully, respectfully removed from the dense jungle environment and transported to the sterile, brightly lit confines of the medical examiner's facility, the monumental task of officially documenting the horror began. The transition from the chaotic, humid jungle to the cold, stainless steel reality of the morgue represents a fundamental shift in the investigative process. Here, the overwhelming emotional weight of the discovery must be carefully channeled into precise, scientific observation. The official police reports, the detailed autopsy protocols, and the comprehensive crime scene analysis documents began to slowly pile up on the lead investigators' desks. In these highly formal, strictly objective legal documents, the horrifying reality of Wyatt's final hours was systematically reduced to clinical, forensic terminology. Yet, even within this incredibly dry, scientific language, the underlying truth could not be sanitized, muted, or completely hidden from view. Across multiple official forms, detailed photographic logs, and heavily redacted investigative summaries, a single, recurring concept began to heavily dominate the official narrative, an overarching theme defined by two simple but devastatingly powerful words: severe violence. This stark classification, typed cleanly onto official government letterhead, hopelessly failed to capture the true, visceral horror of the crime, yet it served as the critical, foundational legal cornerstone for the massive, island-wide homicide investigation that was about to rapidly unfold. The physical evidence meticulously collected from the isolated clearing provided an abundance of undeniable, hard facts regarding exactly how the young man had been murdered. The angle of the strikes, the type of implements used, and the defensive posturing of the victim all painted a clear, horrific picture of the mechanics of the crime. But far more importantly, this physical evidence also raised a series of deeply troubling, incredibly urgent questions regarding the specific nature and identity of the perpetrators. The extreme brutality of the crime scene functioned as a psychological profile left inadvertently behind by the killers. It told the detectives exactly what kind of individuals they were looking for, individuals who possessed a shocking lack of conscience and a terrifying capacity for sustained violence, who possessed the precise psychological capacity to commit an act of such immense, overwhelming cruelty on a peaceful island. Why would a seemingly ordinary, well-liked 23-year-old man become the specific, highly targeted recipient of such a profoundly personal, deeply vindictive display of unhinged rage? The calculated, systematic nature of the injuries completely eliminated the comforting, though tragic, possibility of a random, isolated encounter with a transient, violent stranger passing through the territory. The sheer logistical effort required to orchestrate such a prolonged, uninterrupted period of torture in that specific, highly isolated location strongly pointed toward a coordinated, highly familiar group effort. A crime of this magnitude, lasting for hours without interruption, requires a level of comfort and geographic confidence that outsiders simply do not possess. The horrifying truth that was slowly, inevitably beginning to dawn on the exhausted investigative team was that the monsters responsible for this unparalleled atrocity had not arrived on the island via a passing cargo ship or a random commercial flight. They were already there. They were deeply embedded within the very social fabric of Tutuila, confidently navigating the exact same sunlit streets, shopping in the exact same local markets, and participating in the exact same community events as the victim himself. The intense, ongoing analysis of the forensic evidence, combined with a deep dive into the victim's social network and his recent interactions, was rapidly leading the determined detectives away from the abstract, comforting concept of unknown, faceless assailants. The path of the investigation was aggressively pivoting, pointing directly toward a specific, localized group of young, native men. At the very center of this dark, emerging web of local brutality, two distinct figures began to materialize from the shadows of the initial confusion. They were two individuals who had successfully managed to hide their true, monstrous nature behind the deceptive, comforting mask of community familiarity, waiting patiently for the perfect, fatal moment to strike. The investigation was no longer about simply finding a body. It had evolved into a desperate, high-stakes hunt to identify, isolate, and capture the predators hiding in plain sight before they could seamlessly blend back into the peaceful rhythm of island life. The gavel of the High Court of American Samoa finally fell in 2006, bringing a formal end to the agonizing, 4-year judicial theater that had transfixed and repulsed the community of Tutuila. The sentencing of Richard Modger and Talofa Sumanu represented more than just the administrative conclusion of a complex criminal file. It functioned as a definitive, institutional acknowledgement of the profound, unmitigated evil that had once been allowed to flourish in the quiet corners of the island's interior. As the two men were led away from the courtroom, stripped of their deceptive masks of defiance and cowardice, a heavy, somber silence permeated the island, a silence not born of ignorance or uncertainty, but of a collective, shared understanding of the devastating gravity of what had been lost. The formal justice system had performed its duty, meticulously weighing the evidence and delivering a verdict that matched, as closely as the law allows, the magnitude of the transgression against Wyatt Bowles Jr. Yet, in the immediate, hollow aftermath of the sentencing, there remained a persistent, gnawing sense of profound, inescapable inadequacy. No 50-year sentence, no 20-year term, and no amount of institutional condemnation could ever truly fill the catastrophic, yawning void left behind by the senseless, brutal erasure of a 23-year-old life. The weight of the judgment, while absolutely essential for the maintenance of social order and the integrity of the law, acted as a chilling, permanent reminder of the sheer, irredeemable nature of the loss. The vibrant, future-oriented trajectory of a young man had been violently, prematurely terminated, and no bureaucratic process, regardless of how thorough or final, possessed the miraculous capacity to undo the horrific, irreversible damage inflicted upon the victim, his grieving family, or the fundamental innocence of the island community itself. For the family of Wyatt Bowles Jr., the years of judicial maneuvering had been a grueling, secondary trauma, relentless, repetitive cycle of pain that had demanded they witness the perpetrator's desperate, self-serving lies and their pathetic, cowardly attempts to evade responsibility. The conclusion of the trial, therefore, did not bring a simple, joyful release from the agony. Rather, it provided a weary, exhausted kind of closure, the kind that allows a person to finally stop looking back at the horrific, insurmountable mountain they have been forced to climb, only to find that the landscape on the other side is permanently and irrevocably altered. The grief they carried was not something that would ever fully fade away. It was, instead, a permanent, defining feature of their internal world, a testament to the love and the memory of the son who had been stolen from them in the most monstrous, unimaginably cruel fashion. The island of Tutuila itself, historically defined by its deep sense of communal trust and its sheltering, protective atmosphere, was forced to undergo a slow, painful process of reconciliation with the dark, hidden reality that had surfaced within its boundaries. The murder of Wyatt Bowles Jr. was not merely a singular, isolated criminal event. It functioned as a violent, psychological rupture that permanently shattered the foundational illusion of absolute, local safety. People who had once felt entirely comfortable navigating the island at any hour, who had trusted in the inherent goodwill of their neighbors and their peers, were now forced to live with the lingering, unsettling awareness that the most extreme, unimaginable forms of violence can, and do, occur right in one's own backyard. The lush, verdant rainforests and the pristine, black volcanic shorelines, which had once been viewed exclusively through the lens of aesthetic beauty and natural wonder, were now permanently infused with a darker, more complex meaning. They stood as silent, ancient witnesses to the fact that the island's physical beauty provides absolutely no immunity against the darkest, most depraved impulses of human nature. This realization settled over the community like a cold, persistent fog, fundamentally altering the way the islanders viewed their own environment and the people who shared it with them. The narrative of the 2002 murder became a deeply ingrained, cautionary tale, a tragic, chilling, and essential component of the island's historical consciousness. It is a story that is passed down not necessarily as a formal, public lesson, but as a whispered, somber reminder of the fragility of the peace they work so hard to maintain. It serves as a stark, unforgiving checkpoint in the island's history, a marker that permanently divides the past from the present, ensuring that the memory of what happened to Wyatt remains a protective, albeit sorrowful, vigilance. In the years that have followed, as the physical scars on the landscape have been slowly reclaimed by the aggressive, relentless growth of the tropical flora, the emotional scars within the community have also undergone a long, difficult process of transformation. The intense, visceral shock of the initial discovery, the suffocating atmosphere of the multi-year investigation, and the dramatic, polarizing energy of the trial have all eventually succumbed to the inevitable, smoothing influence of time. However, the core truth of the tragedy, the fact that a young man was targeted, hunted, and systematically destroyed by those he trusted, remains a fixed, immovable point in the island's collective memory. It is a reality that demands to be acknowledged, honored, and never, under any circumstances, forgotten. To remember Wyatt is to acknowledge the full, devastating human cost of the crime, to pay respect to the life that was stolen, and to maintain a steadfast, uncompromising commitment to the protection of that which is most precious, the safety and the dignity of every individual within the community. The waves of the Pacific continue their eternal, rhythmic assault against the shore, a powerful, indifferent display of nature that has witnessed the passage of centuries and the arrival of countless, fleeting human dramas. They represent a scale of time and existence that dwarfs the petty, destructive malice of the men who committed this murder. Yet, it is within the tiny, fragile, and often brutal space of human interaction that our lives are defined and our stories are written. The story of Wyatt Bowles Jr. is, at its essence, a testament to the endurance of the human spirit in the face of absolute, unadulterated darkness. It is a story that requires us to look into the abyss of human cruelty, to recognize the terrifying, potential presence of such darkness within our own midst, and to choose, with every ounce of our strength, to remain anchored to the values of empathy, integrity, and light. As the sun sets over the island, casting its long, final shadows across the cooling sand, the memory of Wyatt lingers in the quiet, reflective spaces of the island's consciousness, a silent, constant, and profoundly moving reminder of the young man who was, the loss that remains, and the responsibility we all share to ensure that the peace of the island is never again so violently, so callously, and so unnecessarily shattered by the actions of those who have chosen to completely abandon their own humanity. The final, enduring legacy of this case is not found in the prison sentences of the perpetrators, nor in the cold, clinical findings of the forensic reports, but in the collective, ongoing choice of the community to define themselves not by the darkness that briefly overwhelmed them, but by the resilience, the unity, and the enduring, quiet love that they continue to extend toward the memory of the life that was taken. Rest in peace, Wyatt Bowles Jr., for your story, though etched in the most tragic of circumstances, has become an indelible, permanent part of the island's soul, a quiet, insistent call to hold onto the light with everything we have, even when the surrounding darkness feels as vast and as deep as the ocean itself. In this way, the memory of the young man is transformed from a static, frozen image of a tragedy into a living, breathing, and essential force for awareness and communal strength, ensuring that his life, however brief, continues to have a profound, lasting impact on the way the people of Tutuila relate to one another and to the precious, fragile peace that they inhabit every single day. The island moves forward, forever changed, forever marked, but also forever reminded of the profound, irreplaceable value of the human spirit that can never be truly destroyed, even in the face of the most unimaginable, calculated, and devastating evil. The final reflection upon this harrowing chapter of Tutuilah's history demands a move beyond the immediate, visceral details of the crime and the clinical finality of the courtroom verdicts, pushing us instead into the deeper, more complex territory of human legacy and the enduring impact of collective trauma. When a community is confronted by an act of such profound, unadulterated malice, the response is never a simple return to the status quo. It is, rather, a fundamental renegotiation of the communal contract. The tragedy of Wyatt Bowles Jr. serves as an eternal, silent anchor in the memory of the island, a permanent reminder of the fragile interface between the serene, natural environment and the unpredictable, often dark currents of the human heart. To look back at this case is not merely to recount the mechanics of a murder, but to engage in an ongoing, necessary process of witnessing, honoring the life that was violently extinguished while simultaneously grappling with the terrifying, uncomfortable reality that the potential for such cruelty exists in every social environment, regardless of its geographic isolation or its cultural commitment to peace. The legacy of Wyatt Bowles Jr. is not defined by the gruesome manner of his death, nor by the cold, bureaucratic numbers of the prison sentences handed down to Richard Mauger and Talofa Sumanu. Instead, his legacy resides in the collective, persistent memory of his youth, his potential, and the profound, irreplaceable void he left behind in the lives of those who knew and loved him. This memory functions as a quiet, protective force, a communal guardian that keeps the reality of the past alive not for the sake of dwelling in perpetual sorrow, but as an essential, moral requirement to prevent such a tragedy from ever repeating its horrific pattern. The way in which the islanders interact today, the subtle, deepened awareness they bring to their communal bonds, the heightened value placed on safety and mutual lookouts, and the quiet, respectful acknowledgement of the history that dwells in their shadows, is a direct, living testament to the resilience of a community that has looked directly into the abyss and refused to be consumed by it. In the broader, more abstract sense, the case forces us to reconsider the profound, often invisible architecture of the social relationships we take for granted. We operate daily under the assumption that our peers, our acquaintances, and even the people we see casually in our neighborhoods are governed by the same baseline of empathy, rationality, and moral decency that we hold for ourselves. The absolute destruction of this assumption in the case of Wyatt Bowles Jr. is, perhaps, the most lingering, unsettling consequence of the entire ordeal. It teaches a lesson that is both painful and vital, that trust is not a passive, given state of existence, but an active, fragile, and courageous choice that must be guarded with intelligence and tempered by an understanding of the human condition in all its light and shadow. The perpetrators, in their desperate, cowardly attempt to shift blame and escape the consequences of their actions, inadvertently revealed the most profound lesson of the case, that malice is ultimately a solitary, isolating force, one that inevitably leads to the total dissolution of even the most toxic, conspiratorial bonds. Their collapse before the law was a manifestation of the inherent hollowness of their philosophy, a clear demonstration that violence, while capable of causing unimaginable, temporary destruction, is fundamentally incapable of building or sustaining anything of value. They are now, and will remain, relegated to the margins of the island's story, reduced to nothing more than the cautionary, dark figures against which the community defines its own enduring commitment to decency and order. Wyatt, by contrast, continues to exist as a vibrant, enduring symbol of the life that is to be cherished. His memory is woven into the very fabric of the island, present in the gentle sway of the palm trees he once walked beneath and the quiet, persistent pulse of the tides that mark the passage of years. Every new generation of island youth who hears the story, however softly or guardedly, inherits a piece of this moral landscape, gaining an early, essential awareness of the stakes of living in a shared community. This is not about instilling a debilitating, perpetual fear, but about fostering a profound, mature respect for the weight of one's choices and the sacred, absolute value of every individual life. As the years continue to roll forward, and as the island of Tutuilah navigates the inevitable, modern challenges of a changing world, the memory of this tragedy remains a steady, guiding light. It reminds the community that despite the vastness of the Pacific and the deceptive, tranquil beauty of their surroundings, they are, in the end, responsible for one another. They are the keepers of the peace, the architects of the safety they enjoy, and the primary, active guardians against the intrusion of that same, ancient darkness that once claimed their own. The final, overarching conclusion of this narrative is not one of despair, but one of profound, hard-won wisdom. It is the wisdom that recognizes the capacity for evil, acknowledges the inevitability of human suffering, but ultimately chooses to respond with a defiant, unwavering commitment to the preservation of life and the strengthening of the bonds that unite us. Wyatt Bowles Jr. may have been taken from this world in a moment of unimaginable, calculated cruelty, but he was never truly erased. He lives on in the hearts of his family, in the collective conscience of the community that refused to let his story die, and in the ongoing, quiet, and resilient effort to ensure that his life, and the profound love it represented, remains a powerful, central force that guides the island toward a future of empathy, vigilance, and enduring, communal strength. In the grand, indifferent scope of human history, the lives of most individuals fade into the quiet background of the past, leaving behind only the most fleeting of traces. Yet, there are some lives whose stories, by the very nature of their tragic, singular ends, manage to transcend the limitations of time, becoming eternal, defining points in the story of the place they once inhabited. Wyatt is one such life. He serves as a mirror, forcing us to confront the deepest, most uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our societies, while simultaneously inspiring the highest, most noble efforts to protect and cherish the fragility of our shared existence. To close this chapter is not to walk away from it, but to carry the weight of its lessons forward into the light of every new day, ensuring that the peace, the beauty, and the profound, sacred trust of the island are guarded with a commitment that is as deep, as vast, and as enduring as the ocean itself. The story of Tutuila is the story of its people, a story of love, of loss, of immense, devastating hardship, and ultimately of a resilient, beautiful, and hard-won triumph of the human spirit. Wyatt's life, and the memory of the young man he was, remains the heartbeat of this narrative, a constant, gentle reminder that even in the most shadowed valleys of our experience, the light of our shared humanity remains, waiting for us to choose it, to protect it, and to honor it with every single step we take along the path of our brief, precious, and profoundly meaningful lives. As we move forward, we do so with the knowledge that we are the stewards of this memory, the protectors of this peace, and the living, breathing witnesses to a resilience that can never be truly broken. In this, the tragedy is transformed, its sting finally softened by the persistent, unyielding strength of those who carry it, and in the enduring, quiet hope that defines the future of all who call this beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished island home. The enduring legacy of the Wyatt Bowles Jr. tragedy extends far beyond the confines of the Tutuila judicial history, reaching into the very core of what it means to belong to a community that has faced the absolute, chilling failure of its internal safeguards. When a society is forced to confront the reality that its own members are capable of systematic, predatory violence, it inevitably triggers a fundamental shift in the psychological landscape of that place. This evolution is not a sudden or explosive transformation, but rather a slow, deliberate thickening of the communal skin, a hardening of the collective resolve to prioritize vigilance and mutual protection above all else. For the residents of American Samoa, the memory of what transpired in 2002 remains a quiet, insistent pulse beneath the surface of daily life, a reminder that the paradise they inhabit is not an inherent state of nature, but a carefully curated, fragile construct that must be sustained by the active, conscious choices of its people. This awareness has fostered a culture of subtle, pervasive observation, where the well-being of the youth is no longer a matter of casual assumption but one of active, communal responsibility. The tragedy acted as a crucible, burning away the naive layers of unexamined trust and replacing them with a more mature, guarded form of social cohesion that acknowledges the inherent complexity of the human spirit. To walk the roads of Tutuila today, surrounded by the same breathtaking vistas of volcanic rock and emerald jungle that Wyatt once walked, is to inhabit a landscape that is simultaneously more beautiful and more somber than it was before. The scenery itself bears the weight of the history that occurred within its hidden depths, and for those who hold the story in their hearts, the environment serves as a constant, silent dialogue between the peace of the present and the horror of the past. This dialogue is essential. It prevents the community from falling into a state of comfortable, dangerous forgetfulness. It keeps the memory of Wyatt alive not as a cold, static archive of a legal proceeding, but as a dynamic, living force that informs the way parents talk to their children, the way neighbors watch over one another's homes, and the way the community rallies when someone goes missing, however briefly, in the vast, shadowed interior of the island. There is a deep, quiet power in this refusal to let the narrative fade into the background noise of the tropical winds. It is an act of defiance against the very malice that sought to erase Wyatt's existence, a declaration that, even in the face of the most extreme, dehumanizing cruelty, the community remains tethered to the humanity of the victim. This tether is the true, lasting legacy of the case, a moral compass that, while forged in the fires of an unthinkable tragedy, now provides a consistent, reliable direction for a society committed to the ongoing preservation of its own fundamental decency. The passage of time, while it has muted the initial, frantic panic and the dramatic intensity of the courtroom battles, has only served to clarify the moral implications of the crime. It has allowed the community to process the enormity of what happened from a position of relative stability, transforming raw, chaotic grief into a steady, disciplined commitment to the future. In this, the tragedy of 2002 has been slowly, painfully repurposed into a cornerstone of communal strength. It is a testament to the fact that human resilience is not defined by the absence of trauma, but by the ability to incorporate that trauma into the identity of the group without being destroyed by it. Wyatt Bowles Jr. is no longer just the victim of a heinous act. He has become a symbol of the island's capacity to endure, to learn, and to ultimately triumph over the darkness that once threatened to define its collective soul. Every gesture of communal care, every instance of neighbors looking out for the vulnerable, and every effort made to educate the next generation about the importance of integrity and vigilance is, in a profound sense, an act of remembrance. It is a way of saying that the life that was not taken in vain, for its ending served to permanently alter the moral consciousness of those who remained. The story of the island is now, and will always be, divided by the occurrence of this event, but it is also united by the way the islanders have chosen to move forward. They move forward not by forgetting, but by carrying the memory forward as a weight, a responsibility, and a guiding light. This is the ultimate, paradoxical victory of the human spirit, that the very event designed to shatter a society can, through the persistent, quiet strength of that society, become the catalyst for a more profound, more conscious, and more resilient kind of unity. The memory of Wyatt is, therefore, a living thing, flowing through the social veins of Tutuila like the cool, clear waters of the mountain streams that nourish the island's verdant interior. It is present in the laughter of children playing on the beaches, safe in the knowledge that they are surrounded by a community that remembers the price of innocence, and in the quiet, reflective moments of those who, having lived through the darkness, now cherish the light with a depth and an intensity that can only be understood by those who have known such loss. The island continues to evolve, to face the pressures of the modern world, and to grapple with the inevitable, ongoing challenge of maintaining its communal peace in an environment that is never entirely predictable. Yet, within this ongoing narrative, the shadow of 2002 remains a constant, grounding reality, a reminder of the stakes, the value of the bonds that unite them, and the absolute, non-negotiable importance of holding on to the humanity that, even in the most desperate of circumstances, is the only thing that truly belongs to us. In the final estimation, The story of this murder is not a story about the monsters who committed it, for their memory is fleeting and their impact is ultimately hollow. It is a story about the young man who was lost and the community that refused to let his memory be anything less than an enduring, transformative force for good. His life, and the impact of its loss, has become a permanent, foundational element of the Tutuila identity, ensuring that the peace, the safety, and the communal trust of the island are guarded with a vigilance that is as profound and as enduring as the memory of the life itself. As the sunset paints the sky in vibrant, fleeting colors of orange and purple, reflecting off the vast, indifferent expanse of the Pacific, the islanders look out toward the horizon with a quiet, knowing strength. They are a people who have seen the worst that the human heart can offer, yet they remain committed to the best that it can aspire to be. They are the survivors of an unthinkable horror, and they are the architects of a future built upon the bedrock of remembrance, empathy, and an unwavering, collective commitment to the preservation of the life that was, the life that continues to be, and the life that they are all tasked with protecting in the beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished sanctuary of their home. This commitment is the final word on the matter, the closing of the circle, and the enduring, quiet anthem of a community that has found, in the depths of its own sorrow, the absolute, undeniable power of its own, persistent humanity. And in that, the life of Wyatt Bowles Jr. finds its most perfect, most honorable, and most lasting resolution, a light that continues to shine, however softly, in the very heart of the darkness that once sought to extinguish it, ensuring that his name and his story will be carried forward, generation after generation, as a sacred, essential, and deeply meaningful part of the island's ongoing, triumphant, and profoundly resilient song of existence. The final perspective on the tragic narrative of Wyatt Bowles Jr. necessitates a profound synthesis of all that has been examined, a deliberate gathering of the fractured, painful threads into a single, cohesive tapestry of communal resolve. To fully grasp the weight of this history is to acknowledge that the conclusion of the legal process in 2006 did not mark the end of the narrative, but rather the beginning of an era of integration. The memory of the 2002 murder has been systematically woven into the foundational ethos of Tutuila, serving not as a paralyzing ghost of the past, but as a silent, guiding principle that informs the present. This ongoing process of integration is perhaps the most significant, yet least visible, achievement of the islanders. They have taken an event of unprecedented, localized horror and successfully translated it into a quiet, pervasive awareness that influences the way the community operates on a granular, daily level. This is seen in the informal, yet incredibly effective, networks of communal vigilance that exist between neighbors, the silent, collective commitment to maintaining a space where the youth can navigate their transition into adulthood without the looming fear of such predation, and the deliberate, almost sacred way in which the memory of the victim is honored by those who remain. The transformation of a tragedy into a source of communal strength is a hallmark of a society that has successfully navigated the most difficult of human experiences without compromising its core values. It speaks to a deep, inherent resilience that characterizes the people of American Samoa, a refusal to allow the dark, destructive actions of a few to define the collective identity of the many. When the community gathers for festivals, or when families walk the beaches at dusk, there is a subtle, unspoken acknowledgement of the fragility of the peace they enjoy, a collective gratitude for the safety that was once so violently threatened. This awareness does not dampen the joy of existence. Rather, it provides a richer, more profound context for it, deepening the appreciation for the bonds of friendship, the trust of neighbors, and the sanctity of a life lived in harmony with one's community. The persistence of Wyatt's memory in this way is the ultimate, non-negotiable rejection of the malice that once permeated the jungle. It is a quiet, persistent, and immovable assertion that the life he lived and the love he left behind possess a power that far exceeds the temporary, fleeting energy of the violence that sought to end him. As the years continue to accumulate, and as the island faces the inevitable, shifting dynamics of a modern world, the story of Wyatt Bowles Jr. remains a fixed, essential reference point, ensuring that the community never strays too far from the lessons it was forced to learn in such a brutal, uncompromising fashion. This, in many respects, is the highest form of justice possible, a justice that transcends the sterile, institutional environment of a courtroom and manifests instead as a living, breathing commitment to the protection of life and the cultivation of empathy. The perpetrators, in their attempt to annihilate a single existence, unwittingly set in motion a sequence of events that would compel the entire island to reevaluate, strengthen, and permanently solidify its own humanity. Their failure to comprehend the depth of this communal bond is perhaps the most ironic aspect of their entire, dark conspiracy. They believed they could operate in the shadows to destroy a life, failing to realize that by doing so, they were actually triggering a process that would result in the long-term, profound elevation of the community's collective moral awareness. Today, when one looks out over the vast, shimmering expanse of the Pacific from the shores of Tutuila, it is impossible not to feel the profound, ancient weight of the history that dwells in the silence of the landscape. The ocean, which serves as both the gateway to the world and the impenetrable boundary of the island's isolation, continues its timeless, rhythmic motion, indifferent to the joys and the sorrows that play out on the small, volcanic stage of the island. Yet, within the hearts of those who carry the memory of Wyatt, the ocean is something more. It is a symbol of the vast, unending nature of human connection, a reminder that the bonds which unite the community are as deep, as powerful, and as resilient as the waters themselves. To carry this memory forward is to participate in the most noble of human endeavors, the preservation of the truth against the passage of time and the erosion of experience. It is to keep the promise that, even in the face of the most unthinkable darkness, the light of human life, dignity, and love will always find a way to endure. This endurance is the final, definitive answer to the malice of 2002. It is the reason the island continues to thrive, why it continues to offer a place of refuge and community for its people, and why the name of Wyatt Bowles Jr. remains a respected, central part of the island's enduring, resilient story. As the final chapter of this reflection comes to a close, one is left with the overwhelming, quiet realization that the story of this murder is, at its heart, a story of hope, the hope that humanity is capable of learning, of growing, and of choosing, over and over again, to protect the vulnerable and cherish the precious, ephemeral spark of life. This is the truth that has been hard-won, the truth that is held in the quiet, reflective spaces of the island's heart, and the truth that will continue to guide the people of Tutuila through whatever challenges the future may hold. The memory of Wyatt is a legacy that transcends the physical, reaching into the very soul of the island, ensuring that the peace, the love, and the profound, communal strength that defines the Tutuila of today will always be rooted in the memory of the life that was, and the collective commitment to the life that remains. This is the ultimate, most profound, and most permanent resolution of the tragedy, a resolution that finds its expression not in the cold, finality of a prison sentence, but in the enduring, vibrant, and ever-present reality of a community that has emerged from the depths of its own darkness, stronger, more conscious, and more deeply connected than it ever was before. As the sun sinks beneath the horizon, casting its final, golden glow upon the island, the memory of Wyatt is carried forward, a quiet, insistent heartbeat that pulses beneath the surface of the island's existence, ensuring that the past is always respected, the present is always cherished, and the future is always protected with a vigilance born of the most profound, hard-won wisdom. This is the final act of the tragedy, an act of redemption that belongs to the entire community, ensuring that the life of one young man, though ended in the most horrific of ways, has become the foundation for a legacy of enduring, quiet, and resilient humanity that will continue to echo through the mountains, the rainforests, and the very soul of Tutuila for as long as the waves continue to strike the shore. In this, the tragedy is transcended, its sting forever blunted by the warmth of remembrance, and its darkness forever held at bay by the unwavering, collective light of a people who have chosen, with everything they have, to live, to love, and to remember together, forever linked by the unbreakable, sacred promise to honor the life that was and to protect the peace of the home they share against the encroaching shadows of the world, with the quiet, unconquerable power of their shared, enduring humanity. The final reflection on the tragedy of Wyatt Bowles Jr. must necessarily transcend the historical facts of the 2002 murder and the subsequent legal resolution, moving instead toward a contemplation of the island's enduring spirit. As we step back from the granular details of the investigation and the harsh realities of the courtroom, what remains is an indelible, haunting narrative about the fragility of human existence and the immense, often untapped power of a community's collective conscience. Tutuila, an island defined by its majestic volcanic geography and its profound isolation from the chaotic velocity of the modern world, has been forever marked by this event. It is a marking that does not diminish the island's inherent beauty, but rather adds a layer of depth and sobriety to the collective psyche of its people. To live in Tutuila today is to inhabit a place that has faced the absolute, chilling abyss of human malice and has, in the years since, chosen to build its future on a foundation of remembrance and heightened vigilance. This choice is not an act of submission to the darkness, but an act of profound, quiet defiance. By keeping the story of Wyatt alive, the community asserts that the life of one young man possesses an infinite, non-negotiable value that cannot be diminished by the actions of those who sought to extinguish it. The legacy of this case is therefore not found in the cold, institutional records of the High Court, but in the everyday, quiet actions of the islanders who have internalized the lesson of that fateful night. They have learned that peace is not merely the absence of conflict but an active, shared commitment to the safety and the dignity of the individual. This awareness manifests in the subtle ways that parents teach their children about the importance of being aware of one's surroundings, the ways in which neighbors look out for each other in the quiet hours of the evening, and the profound, unspoken respect that is afforded to the memory of the life that was lost. It is a form of communal wisdom that is passed down, not necessarily through formal speeches or public monuments, but through the shared experience of living in a place that knows the true cost of complacency. This shared experience creates an invisible, unbreakable thread that links every member of the community, a reminder that they are the architects of their own safety and the guardians of their own shared humanity. The memory of Wyatt Bowles Jr. acts as a moral compass that guides the community, ensuring that they remain anchored in the values of empathy, integrity, and the persistent, unyielding pursuit of justice, even when the path forward seems obscured by the shadows of the past. As we look at the broader implications of this case, it becomes clear that the murder of Wyatt was not merely a personal tragedy but a collective, societal trauma that necessitated a profound reevaluation of the social fabric. The community had to look past the surface-level stability of their island home and confront the uncomfortable, hidden realities that allowed such an atrocity to germinate within their own midst. This act of self-confrontation was painful and, at times, divisive, but it was ultimately the mechanism through which the island emerged as a more conscious, more unified, and more resilient entity. They learned that the strength of a community is not measured by the absence of darkness, but by its capacity to acknowledge the darkness, to confront it with the full force of its moral authority, and to emerge from the confrontation with a renewed, sharpened commitment to the light. This resilience is the true, lasting answer to the cruelty of 2002. It is the reason the island continues to thrive, why it remains a sanctuary for its people, and why the name of Wyatt Bowles Jr. remains a respected, central part of the island's enduring, resilient story. The passage of time has not eroded the significance of the event. Rather, it has clarified it, stripping away the initial, chaotic emotions and revealing the core, essential truths that define the relationship between the individual and the community. Wyatt's life, and the impact of its loss, has become a permanent, foundational element of the Tutuila identity, ensuring that the peace, the safety, and the communal trust of the island are guarded with a vigilance that is as profound and as enduring as the memory of the life itself. In the grand, indifferent scope of human history, where most lives fade into the quiet background of the past, there are some lives whose stories, by the very nature of their tragic, singular ends, managed to transcend the limitations of time, becoming eternal, defining points in the story of the place they once inhabited. Wyatt is one such life. He serves as a mirror, forcing us to confront the deepest, most uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our societies, while simultaneously inspiring the highest, most noble efforts to protect and cherish the fragility of our shared existence. To close this final reflection is not to walk away from the tragedy, but to carry the weight of its lessons forward into the light of every new day, ensuring that the peace, the beauty, and the profound, sacred trust of the island are guarded with a commitment that is as deep, as vast, and as enduring as the ocean itself. The story of Tutuila is the story of its people, a story of love, of loss, of immense, devastating hardship, and ultimately, of a resilient, beautiful, and hard-won triumph of the human spirit. Wyatt's life, and the memory of the young man he was, remains the heartbeat of this narrative, a constant, gentle reminder that even in the most shadowed valleys of our experience, the light of our shared humanity remains, waiting for us to choose it, to protect it, and to honor it with every single step we take along the path of our brief, precious, and profoundly meaningful lives. As we move forward, we do so with the knowledge that we are the stewards of this memory, the protectors of this peace, and the living, breathing witnesses to a resilience that can never be truly broken. In this, the tragedy is transformed, its sting finally softened by the persistent, unyielding strength of those who carry it, and in the enduring, quiet hope that defines the future of all who call this beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished island home. The finality of this reflection is a tribute to the life that was, and a promise to the lives that continue, ensuring that the memory of Wyatt Bowles Jr. will always occupy a sacred, essential, and deeply meaningful place in the island's ongoing, triumphant, and profoundly resilient song of existence. This song, which echoes through the mountains and the rainforests, is the collective voice of a community that has found, in the depths of its own sorrow, the absolute, undeniable power of its own, persistent humanity. It is a song that will be carried forward, generation after generation, as a sacred, essential, and deeply meaningful part of the island's soul, ensuring that the peace, the love, and the profound, communal strength that defines the Tutuila of today will always be rooted in the memory of the life that was lost and the collective commitment to the life that remains, against all odds, against all shadows, and against all challenges that may arise in the future. This commitment is the final word on the matter, the closing of the circle, and the enduring, quiet anthem of a community that has found its path through the darkest night, emerging not into the blinding light of forgetfulness, but into the warm, steady, and life-affirming glow of remembrance, love, and an unwavering, collective dedication to the preservation of the sacred, fragile spark of human life that unites us all. The resolution of the narrative concerning Wyatt Bowles Jr. is not found in the finality of a prison cell or the distant echoes of a courtroom gavel, but in the profound, ongoing transformation of the Tutuila community itself. As we arrive at this final juncture of reflection, we must contemplate the nature of what remains when the immediate, sharp edges of grief begin to dull under the persistent, relentless erosion of time. What remains is a legacy of heightened consciousness, a collective awareness that the peace of their island home is an active, living project that requires the participation and vigilance of every single soul. The story has moved past the individual players, the victims, the perpetrators, the investigators, and the judges, to become a permanent, foundational mythos of the island, a story that serves as a protective barrier against the encroachment of the same darkness that defined the events of 2002. This transformation is the ultimate triumph of the human experience. It is the process by which a society absorbs the impact of a horrific, destabilizing event and reconstructs itself with a more sophisticated, more empathetic, and more resilient framework. To speak of Wyatt today is not to summon a ghost of trauma, but to invoke the memory of a potential that continues to exist within every young person on the island. It is a memory that demands that this potential be nurtured, protected, and honored with the highest possible level of social care. The islanders have effectively decided, through the collective, unspoken choices of their daily lives, that they will not be defined by the actions of the monsters who sought to tear them apart. Instead, they have chosen to define themselves by the depth of their bonds, the integrity of their community, and the unyielding, quiet power of their remembrance. This is a profound, subtle, and incredibly powerful act of resistance, one that speaks volumes about the nature of the people who call Tutuila home. They are a people who have learned that the only way to truly survive the intrusion of such absolute cruelty is to deepen their commitment to the fundamental, sacred duties they owe to one another. Every moment spent in community, every gesture of kindness offered to a neighbor, and every collective decision to prioritize the safety and well-being of the youth is an act of defiance against the memory of the crime. It is a way of ensuring that the life of Wyatt Bowles Jr., though brutally cut short, continues to manifest in the very actions that constitute the daily, resilient life of the island. The tragedy has been effectively subsumed into the identity of the community, serving as a reminder that their peace is not a guarantee provided by the natural world, but a precious, hard-won commodity that must be defended with the quiet, persistent, and unwavering strength of their shared humanity. As we conclude this 10-part exploration, it is essential to recognize that the story does not end. It merely changes form, shifting from a record of a specific, localized disaster into an enduring, living principle of communal conduct. The island stands as a testament to the fact that even when the darkness seems complete, and even when the pain seems absolutely insurmountable, the human spirit possesses an extraordinary, almost miraculous capacity to find its way back to the light. This light is not the blinding, artificial glare of a spotlight, but the warm, steady, and pervasive glow of a communal heart that has chosen, with full knowledge of its own capacity for sorrow, to prioritize the sanctity of life and the strength of the bonds that unite them. Wyatt is the silent, enduring center of this heart, the reminder of why the struggle to be decent and to be vigilant is so profoundly important. His name is synonymous with the island's commitment to its own better self, ensuring that the legacy of his life is not the void he left behind, but the strength and the empathy that the community has discovered in its efforts to fill it. As the future unfolds for Tutuila, and as the island faces the inevitable, shifting challenges of an evolving world, the memory of Wyatt will remain a steady, grounding force, ensuring that the people never lose sight of what is truly valuable, what is truly fragile, and what is truly worth protecting with every single ounce of their collective strength. The story is a closing of a circle that was never meant to be opened, a reconciliation of the past with the present that allows the community to walk into the future with a deeper, more profound sense of purpose. It is a story of a life that mattered, a death that shattered, and a community that, in the face of absolute, terrifying brokenness, chose to pick up the pieces and build something stronger, something more enduring, and something that will continue to reflect the light of human kindness for as long as the mountains stand and the tides continue to wash over the volcanic sands of their island home. This is the final, ultimate resolution, that Wyatt Bowles Jr., through the resilience and the collective memory of the Tutuila people, has achieved a form of immortality that transcends the physical, becoming a permanent, essential, and deeply meaningful part of the fabric of the island soul. His story will be carried forward, not as a burden, but as a guiding star, ensuring that the peace, the love, and the profound, communal strength that defines the Tutuila of today will always be rooted in the memory of the life that was lost and the collective, unwavering commitment to the life that remains, against all odds, against all shadows, and against all challenges that may arise in the future. This commitment is the final word on the matter, the closing of the circle, and the enduring, quiet anthem of a community that has found its path through the darkest night, emerging not into the blinding light of forgetfulness, but into the warm, steady, and life-affirming glow of remembrance, love, and an unwavering, collective dedication to the preservation of the sacred, fragile spark of human life that unites us all. The memory of Wyatt is the heartbeat of this island, a constant, gentle reminder that even in the most shadowed valleys of our experience, the light of our shared humanity remains, waiting for us to choose it, to protect it, and to honor it with every single step we take along the path of our brief, precious, and profoundly meaningful lives. In this, the tragedy is transcended, its sting forever blunted by the warmth of remembrance, and its darkness forever held at bay by the unwavering, collective light of a people who have chosen, with everything they have, to live, to love, and to remember together, forever linked by the unbreakable, sacred promise to honor the life that was, and to protect the peace of the home they share, against the encroaching shadows of the world, with the quiet, unconquerable power of their shared, enduring humanity. The story of Tutuila is the story of its people, and the story of Wyatt Bowles Jr. is the sacred, central truth that ensures the people of Tutuila will always know the true, profound, and eternal meaning of home, peace, and the unbreakable, precious bonds of love that survive even the darkest, most devastating storms, leaving in their wake a community that is stronger, more compassionate, and more deeply connected than ever before in the beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished history of their island home. The conclusion of our narrative does not arrive with a final, definitive period, but rather with the realization that the story of Wyatt Bowles Jr. has become an inseparable component of Tutuila's living history, an eternal echo resonating through the collective consciousness of American Samoa. When we examine the long, complex arc from the initial, devastating loss in 2002 to the present day, we witness a profound evolutionary process within the island community. This process is not characterized by the simple healing of a wound, for some wounds are too deep and too systemic to ever fully disappear. Rather, it is characterized by the integration of that trauma into a higher form of communal maturity. The islanders have effectively transformed a moment of absolute, soul-crushing darkness into a persistent, protective illumination, ensuring that the memory of Wyatt serves not as an instrument of despair, but as a sentinel of safety. This sentinel nature of his memory is perhaps the most significant, enduring legacy of the entire case. It manifests in the way the community maintains its vigilant, watchful stance, in the way individuals prioritize the protection of the vulnerable, and in the quiet, reverent tone with which his name is occasionally invoked in the context of communal responsibility. The transition from the acute, unbearable agony of the initial months to the present state of contemplative remembrance is a testament to the resilience of a people who refuse to let their identity be stolen by the actions of a few individuals who sought to abandon the very principles that bind the community together. This resilience is not passive. It is a dynamic, active force that requires the constant, conscious effort of every member of the island to uphold the values of empathy, integrity, and safety. The perpetrators, in their ultimate, pathetic attempt to escape their own shadows, failed to realize that their actions were destined to create the very thing they feared most, an island community that would become more connected, more aware, and more committed to the preservation of life than it had ever been before. They sought to destroy, yet they were the architects of a deeper, more profound unity. This is the ultimate, cosmic irony of the case, and it stands as the final, absolute rejection of the philosophy of violence. The life of Wyatt Bowles Jr. has achieved a form of permanence that no prison sentence could ever emulate. He lives on in the social contract of the island, a quiet, insistent, and deeply cherished part of the Tutuila spirit that ensures the peace of the home is always held in the highest, most sacred regard. As the sun rises over the lush, verdant mountains each day, illuminating the pristine beauty of the island, there is a renewed, unspoken commitment to carry the lessons of the past forward. This commitment is the true, final resolution, an unwavering promise to honor the memory of the life that was lost by cherishing the life that continues to flourish, protected by the vigilant, resilient, and enduring love of a community that refuses to be defined by anything other than its own, intrinsic humanity. The story of Tutuila is the story of its people, and the story of Wyatt Bowles Jr. is the sacred, central truth that ensures the people of Tutuila will always know the true, profound, and eternal meaning of home, peace, and the unbreakable, precious bonds of love that survive even the darkest, most devastating storms, leaving in their wake a community that is stronger, more compassionate, and more deeply connected than ever before in the beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished history of their island home. The journey of reflection has brought us through the darkness and into the light, and it is here, in the quiet, reflective spaces of the island's heart, that we find the most profound, meaningful, and enduring legacy of all: the realization that we are, in every single moment, the protectors of one another, the keepers of each other's stories, and the stewards of the precious, fragile peace that we share in this beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished corner of the world. We conclude not by turning away, but by fully embracing the truth of what has been, what is, and what will continue to be, as the memory of Wyatt Bowles Jr. guides the island forward into a future that is built upon the solid, unchanging foundation of empathy, remembrance, and an unwavering, collective dedication to the preservation of the sacred, fragile spark of human life that unites us all. This dedication is the closing of the circle, the final act of a long, painful, and ultimately triumphant journey that has transformed the collective trauma into a source of enduring, quiet, and resilient strength. As we look to the horizon, we see not the shadows of the past, but the promise of a future that is anchored in the lessons of that history, a future where the name of Wyatt Bowles Jr. remains a powerful, gentle, and essential part of the Tutuila spirit, ensuring that the island remains a sanctuary of peace, a beacon of resilience, and a testament to the fact that even when the darkness is at its deepest, the light of our shared, enduring humanity remains, waiting for us to choose it, to protect it, and to honor it with every single step we take along the path of our brief, precious, and profoundly meaningful lives. The legacy is absolute, the resolution is final, and the story is and will forever be a vital, living part of the island's identity, ensuring that the peace, the love, and the profound, communal strength that defines the Tutuila of today will always be rooted in the memory of the life that was and the collective, unwavering commitment to the life that remains, against all odds, against all shadows, and against all challenges that may arise in the future. This commitment is the ultimate, final word on the matter, the closing of the circle, and the enduring, quiet anthem of a community that has found its path through the darkest night, emerging not into the blinding light of forgetfulness, but into the warm, steady, and life-affirming glow of remembrance, love, and an unwavering, collective dedication to the preservation of the sacred, fragile spark of human life that unites us all, ensuring that the memory of Wyatt Bowles Jr. will always occupy a sacred, essential, and deeply meaningful place in the island's ongoing, triumphant, and profoundly resilient song of existence. This song, which echoes through the mountains and the rainforests, is the collective voice of a community that has found, in the depths of its own sorrow, the absolute, undeniable power of its own, persistent humanity, a power that is, and will forever remain, the most significant, the most enduring, and the most sacred treasure of the beautiful, haunted, and deeply cherished home they all share in the vast, indifferent, and ancient expanse of the Pacific Ocean. May his memory continue to light the path, may the community continue to stand as one, and may the peace they have fought so hard to reclaim remain forever inviolate, a living, breathing testament to the enduring, unconquerable, and profoundly beautiful nature of the human spirit.